I'm not going to introduce myself. You can jump onto LinkedIn if you want to find out a bit more about me. Why did I come today? Why am I here? Why have I decided to speak to people after being in the food industry for 40 years and being in the background, down in the cellar, doing what no doubt everybody else does? I think for me, these events are important because we don't know each other, but we know something about each other. We're all here for a common purpose. And I think when you surround people, when you surround yourself with people who believe what you believe, then suddenly the word trust appears. We start to open ourselves up and we'll start to share what we know. We'll share what we don't know. And we'll also share what we need to learn. Come and take a seat. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, feel free today to take your phones out, turn your Wi-Fi on, because if I'm not interested enough, then please do check your emails. Okay? But I also want you to Google a few things while we're going, if that's okay. So, one of my favourite poets is a lady called Maya Angelou. You can Google her. And she said that people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So I'm going to try and make you feel how I feel about what I do and about what we do and about taking care of our consumers and also our brands. Okay. So, a little bit about Pladis. It's the biggest business you've never heard of. We're about a 5 billion business owned by Yildiz Holdings. You might recognise some of our brands. One actually represented by this fair city of Coventry, Godiva Chocolate. But I'll leave that for a bit later on. Again, same thing. You can look at the details. You can see where our 4 billion consumers are, or our 36 factories, and where we operate, what countries we operate in. So I'm going to ask you a question now. Does anyone know who Dr. Nadim Ednan Laprousse is? Dr. Nadim Ednan Laprousse. He's the father of a young lady called Natasha Ednan Laprousse. He, unfortunately and regrettably, watched his wife, his daughter, his 15-year-old daughter, die on a plane to Nice recently. She bought a sandwich and it killed her. The company in question were sued by a consumer in America last year. And they won a civil lawsuit because sesame is not one of the major allergens in the US. Clive Shee is the CEO, and you can also Google a guy called Mr. David Matt as well. By 2025, 50% of the population of Europe will be suffering from some form of allergenic chronic disease. So that's something we need to think about. So, what should we talk about today? Here's a few thoughts and a few prompts. Grab a seat, guys. Come in. Join in. So, what's culture? What does culture mean to you? These are all relevant for me because I'm a microbiologist. Well, I was a microbiologist a few years ago. I've forgotten it all now. I was born in Brixton, so I'm a massive reggae fan. I was part of the brewing industry, which is probably, at the time, in the 80s, was probably the seat of misogyny. And I'm delighted to say that as an employer in Saudi Arabia, we were determined to take our Pladis values to a country that did not necessarily want to employ ladies, and we built a factory next to our factory just so that we could employ 50 ladies to work in our plant. So they're all very relevant to me. But for people generally, it's quite simple. You know, culture is simply a set of shared beliefs, a set of shared values, but more importantly, a set of shared behaviours. If you think about what makes change, what makes things change, what affects things, you'll notice that what we've done in Pladis is we've taken the knowledge and understanding from health and safety and tried to immerse that into food safety, together with product quality. These are all relevant because there's a common set of behaviours that make that more or less successful. You can invest, of course you can, and that will change conditions, but you won't change behaviour unless you understand why people do what people do when they come to work. So, we can talk about safety, we can talk about food safety, we can talk about decisions that are made that, for those of us that understand the way businesses work, completely confuse us. Somebody in Volkswagen Audi walked in one day and said, "Hey, I've invented some software that fools the emissions test." And somebody else said, "Great idea." Intolerance. As I've said to you already, 50% of the European population will suffer from some form of allergenic disease by 2025. Now, for us, it's quite a task because when I joined United Biscuits, we made McVitie's digestives in a big factory in Harlesden, which is still there. It's one of the biggest factories in the world. We now make it in Istanbul, in the north of India, in Nigeria, and in Kazakhstan. So trying to get our food safety and our product quality consistent across those geographies with the availability of resources that we've got there is a challenge, but it is absolutely non-negotiable for us. Which is why we did a bit of an allergen study in a couple of years ago. We spent about £175,000 just understanding how allergenic materials behave, whether it's a powder, whether it's a seed, whether it's a liquid, how do they behave? And the reason we did this was because we wanted to remove allergen warnings from our products. We wanted to free up our manufacturing capacity so that we could make more biscuits. And in order to understand why you're doing something, in order to understand manufacturing and the risks related to manufacturing, helps you to understand what it is you need to do to protect consumers. There's another area of consideration for us, because there are belief systems that we have to recognise, and you can get food safety wrong, and it's a big problem. You can obviously get intolerance wrong, but just as equally, people have a belief system. Okay. It may be vegan, it may be halal, it may be kosher, but whatever it is, you cannot afford to get that wrong with your consumers. If you're a global business, as we are, and you want to create a safe highway for a certain belief culture, right the way from the UK, right the way through Turkey to the Far East, you have to have a belief system or a product that satisfies that belief system. So for us, it's all interconnected. You cannot disappoint consumers in any way, shape or form across all of these areas of consideration. So what about you guys? You know, in your businesses, How much, and I know we're going to talk about, we've got some other speakers talking about risk and risk assessments going forward, and there'll be lots of scientists, and you've got lots of people that are going to explain to you how they can make your business safer, or we can make consumers safer. But for us, you know, we recognise it's a VUCA world out there. You can Google that as well. Because we don't know what the details are of our 4 billion consumers. We cannot afford to hope that we'll get it right. Forrest Mars, one of the founders of the Mars business, said, don't hope, sweat. Work hard to get it right. Okay, so for us, everything's quite simple. Our founder, Murat Ülker, said, we make biscuits. We make biscuits because we want to make people... Come in, sit down, guys. Come on. We make biscuits because we want to make people happy. We want to be at that moment where our consumers want to be lifted. So we will make sure that whatever we do, we'll make people happy. And we have the teams to do that. And we want to be there in that moment when our consumer is enjoying our products. We can't afford to get it wrong. And for all of us in the world of food safety or product quality or health and safety or security, you know, sometimes you do feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you know, and I do want you guys to step back. Feel like a brand enabler, don't feel the weight of the world, you know. Of course, there are all sorts of things and challenges that we need to respond to, but if we believe in ourselves and we believe in what we do and we communicate that message and we understand why people come to work and do what they do, we can always improve. Of course, you've got to have a strategy. All good businesses have a strategy, but what makes a business great is it has a great culture as well. So, the journey that we take ourselves on is from reactive to interdependent. And we can qualify or classify any one of our businesses or any one of our factories or any one of our global regions across this very simple guide. So we move from quality or food safety or safety being a reaction. We'll respond to an event. And we'll do that. Obviously, we'll need to be able to do that very well because we're not perfect, we make mistakes. But it's how you respond to those things that makes you successful. But we want to move through dependent, where the rules make you do what you have to do. So when the boss is there and she's watching you, you do what you're supposed to do. But when the boss is not there, or Marks and Spencer have gone away from their audit, or the BRC have finished, that's the moment at which your culture determines what your business does next. And that's what dependent is about. Take away the boss, and when the boss is not there, she's gone away, that's when you revert. An independent business or an independent culture is where there are people that will always do the right thing. Whatever happens, whether the boss is there or not, you know, if I've been told I must not use my phone in my car, I will not use my phone in my car. So these are the people that provide the pivot for everyone else. We want to go to a world called interdependent, where I won't use my phone in my car. I won't allow a food safety event or a product quality event to go without notice, and I will allow my work colleagues to do the same thing. I'll take it upon myself to work back through that organisation and drive it on my own if I need to. So, we map a journey. We map a journey based around culture, performance, organisation and policies. Of course, we have to measure things. We have to measure what it is we do and how we do it, but it's what you measure as well that manages your culture. We have to have rules, we have to have policies, we have to comply with legislation, the rules and the laws of the land, and if the laws of the land do not suit our purpose, we will go one step further. So for us, a sesame seed is an allergen in the US, and we treat it as such, even though we may get away with not being prosecuted if somebody comes to harm. You have to have an organisation that is properly structured and properly competent to manage all of that as well. And we use our very simple measures internally, where we talk about Goya, which is really about going out, getting off your bum, go out and have a look and see what's going on. Audit, assess, evaluate, communicate. Zero defects, we are absolutely and totally focused on driving zero defects, whether that's a security incident, if you're traveling, to Lagos on business, or it's a health and safety incident where you're working with high-speed machinery, or you're driving a truck, or you're driving a car on business around the world for us. Or whether you're delivering product quality, or whether you're delivering food safety, or whether you're delivering against a belief system. We do not tolerate failure, and we're relentlessly pursuing zero defect. And we set ourselves up to do that. And we have to have values. We work on values, not heroes. So you have to get that message right the way to the very, very top. And if my chief executive or my chairman or the CEO or whoever it is isn't actively tweeting or Instagramming and communicating with every element of our workforce or our consumers, young or old, we're not getting the message across. So every day, it's relentless. For me, we also use what we call an energy ladder. So this is about identifying things that will improve, but things that will change culture. So for us, you may use measurements, I call them the below-the-line measurements, measurements like consumer complaints, or incidents, or contaminations, or prosecutions, fines, failures, general failures. If you use failures as your measure to drive your business, you will get as far as dependent. You will always have a dependent culture. So when you take the rules away, or when somebody's had a good year and delivered a consumer complaint reduction, they relax for the next 2 or 3. The only way to drive the culture is to drive things that change the way people behave in work. And that way then you can move all the way, and then safety, food safety, security incidents, they become a choice. People choose to do what they do. And obviously when you recognise that, you can move those people that make those choices out of your business. So my last slide is about defects. So when I talked about zero defects, I talked with the owner of the business, Muda Ulka. He says to me, how can we choose a consumer that will allow to receive a defect from one of our products? How can I choose that? Who is it? So we have a defect level which is a decimal place better than 6 Sigma. We'll have, in some products, 2 to 3 complaints per million. Now, some businesses will accept that. Some businesses will be happy with that. We'll have a lost time accident rate in our business, which means that somebody's fallen over and they're so badly hurt they can't come to work the next day. These are things that we cannot conceive to be acceptable. So I'll let you choose which one of our consumers you'd like to give the defect to today. Okay, that's me done. Thank you very much. I'm now going to